Yes, now to another conversation that has really been talked about in the country. It is about the finance bill, and let's first listen to the president's analysis in as far as how much tax Kenyans pay versus neighboring countries.
The real issue is that our tax as a percentage of GDP, if we manage to get this finance bill through, we will move from 14 to 16. We will still be way below what our peers are.
All right, that is the president who's speaking on Sunday during that joint interview, media interview on Sunday night with some 6 media houses. And of course, this is informed by what has been going on. Honorable Mango, let me begin with you. Now, what has been your concern about the finance bill? And of course, time is running. This has to be concluded because the second week or so of June, you have to receive the budget statement from the cabinet secretary, and thereafter you have to now work on the finance bill for it to start running out, starting 1st of July. What are your initial thoughts about it?
Well, thank you. The finance bill 2013, to me, is a big challenge because it's supposed to speak the fiscal policy of a government. And as we stand, finance policy so far under discussion is very punitive. To me, it is backward and not promising. The Kenya Kwanza government came into existence by promises. And one of the things was that they were to cater for the low cadre people, Mama Mboga, Boda Boda, and what have you. But now looking at the contents of the finance bill, it is quite punitive to the very person that they promised hope, to the very person they promised a big future. One, look at something like the turnover tax. Previously, turnover tax had a minimum of 1 million shillings. Right now, that bar has been lowered to 500,000, meaning that more of the people being brought into the bracket are the very Mama Mboga and Boda Boda person whom Kenya Kwanza promised hope. To make it worse, the tax has been increased from 1% to 3%. A good example is that if Mama Mboga, the SME, was paying, let's say, a turnover of 1 million, he was paying 1%, this person was only paying 10,000 shillings. Now that this has been increased to 3%, this very person at 500,000 is going to pay 15,000 shillings, meaning it is more punitive to the very person. Look at the tax, the VAT on fuel, for example. Majority of the people at the low cadre only use fuel. None of us here will say with a lot of respect uses kerosene. When the last time you used kerosene, for example? You even can't remember how much it is. But my people in the village use kerosene to light up their houses. They use kerosene to cook their food. And therefore, increasing VAT on petroleum products is a big punishment to the very people these guys thought they were going to support, because it is going to, right now, I saw yesterday, unfortunately, the cost of kerosene went up by about 15 shillings. The cost of diesel or super went up about by almost 3 shillings. It is more punitive to the very person who is at the low cadre there. And therefore, the finance bill is not promising. Look at the housing levy. They have tried to argue that this is not a tax, but it is a levy. It is a levy that you are going to forcefully deduct from this person because people are not given the option of voluntary contribution or voluntary deduction.
Right. But
it has been pushed down the throat that come what may, we are going to start this thing from 1st of June, 3% of what you have. Now, majority of the people, let's talk about the guys employed by government, for example, about 700 people employed by the national government. All these guys have a way or the other trying to secure a house, either through SACCOs, either through mortgages, whatever have you. Now, it should have been a voluntary scheme so that if somebody does not want to contribute the 3%, then you're left off than being forced on the same. Now, we have our young people. These are digital creators, our young people, content creators. We are saying that now we are going to have a tax on them. Is it killing the industry or it is trying to revive the industry? It will actually be killing the industry of the youth. And these are the very people known as Mama Mboga and Boda Boda person. Looking at, for example, 5% excess duty on wigs and what have you. The kinyozi and the salon, majority of the people who are doing that business are the low-cadre people again. These are guys who are trying to get a livelihood from that. Now you're telling me that this salonist, this barber person, will actually have to pay extra tax on the same. On the extreme side, let's look at it. We have what I may refer to as the helicopter tax. The government has for some reason decided to reduce or to remove 16% VAT on import of aircrafts, import of on parts, aircraft parts. They have decided to remove 3.5% import on what we call import, what do you call it? Import declaration fee. Yes. They have again removed the 2% on levy development fee. For a class of people, in Western Kenya, for example, if I want to see, maybe only 2 people have helicopters. But everybody, majority of the people will light up their houses using paraffin and what have you. Now, what are we doing? We are actually pressing these very people known as the hustlers. On the extreme side, again, look at what we call the rental tax. Rental tax has been at a rate of 10% of the amount received from the rental income. This figure has been reduced from 10% to 7.5%, meaning we are giving advantage to the already rich people, and this benefit shall not be pushed to the commoner. This reduction in taxes shall not be pushed to the commoner. Somebody needs to convince me that the Finance Bill 2013 is pro-poor. 2023 rather. It is pro-poor. It is not. Actually, it is a hindrance. To me, it is backward, and it is going to punish the very poor. No country, if I may know of, that has ever taxed itself to prosperity. Kenya cannot be the first country. Thank you.
What then, where do we go from here? Honorable Madenge, because a lot of feedback has come. There's some things that are making it better. For instance, the president was highlighting that on LPG, there's a proposal to scrap the 8% VAT. But then when you look at what the burden that is being imposed on the Kenyan, it outweighs the benefit of what is being taken away. Where do you go from here?
Sam, you know, there's a question I asked again this week. Has everybody in this country become the opposition?
What do you mean?
Yes. Let me bring it home. The finance bill is not just about tax. The finance bill is a 161-page document. So who is this Kenyan who is presenting the entire picture of the finance bill, or what I would call a balanced scorecard, so that then Kenyans are able to pick? The opposition only picks on the lowest hanging fruits in terms of increases in taxation. And there are certain components. Number one, Azimio made promises to this country that if you elected Azimio, this is what we will fulfill. Kenya Kwanza made promises to this country that if you give us an opportunity to lead this country, this is what we will do. On all those promises, on both sides of the divide, there was the big question of how will this be financed?
Right.
So irrespective of who will be in office or would have been in office, a finance bill 2023 would be on the table. And the finance bill is enacted once every year, immediately after the passing of the budget. Kenyans have this golden opportunity that because of the widened space of involvement of the people's representatives in the budgeting process, then these documents come in the public domain early enough for us to have discourse. We agree on certain things. The economy in our country, in the region and globally is not performing well. This is the question why I asked whether everybody has become opposition.
Right.
In those circumstances, in those countrywide circumstances, regional circumstances, global circumstances, what should we as Kenyans do? Shouldn't we rally behind? Even the opposition has an interest in getting this country better. They would want to come into office, if they ever do, and a country that is not in the hall, but is on the first floor or the second floor. This discourse is healthy. However, what are the options? We made promises. The promises had financial implications. Whose responsibility is it to raise the finances to develop and grow our country? The responsibility is both for government and the opposition. It is for all Kenyans.
But what
the hard economic time.
Yes, and you are getting to it. What then do you do with the reality on the ground? Because those hard economic times you're talking about are real.
Yes. This is the reality on the ground. For example, the question of the housing savings. Because it is a savings program. You put your money, save your money in this program. Earlier on, Post Office Bank had a post office savings bond. You put in your money there for a year. At the end of the year, you could withdraw it with interest or roll over. This program is a 7-year savings program. At the end of the 7 years...
Was the post office bond...
It was voluntary. It was voluntary.
Okay.
So, let's go. At the end of the 7 years, your savings at worst will have doubled. If you want to retrieve them,
that is not in the finance bill.
That is you see, the finance bill will have the principle. Below it are regulations that operationalize a fund. That is the reality of registration.
But Honorable Mathinge,
we normally create a fund, then how that fund is going to operate is provided for in regulations.
But that is a very important issue, if at all it is to be implemented. And I would think it's supposed to be in a bill, not a regulation. Because, just hold on.
Yes.
When you're talking about that, yes, you'll make your savings 3%, maximum 5,000 shillings as matched by your employer for 7 years. That's about 420,000 shillings. And then you're saying it will have doubled. Why are you getting that? Why is it not in the bill?
Because you are contributing 3%, your employer is contributing 3%. If you do not contribute this 3%, you don't get the matching fund from your employer.
So what do you mean it will have doubled by 7 years?
If I'm producing 3% myself, my employer is bringing in 3%. My employer has no claim on his 3% contribution at the end of 7 years. The entire benefit comes to me. That is how the doubling is coming.
You know, that contribution, just like NSSF,
yes,
it is deducted at the point of payment of salary.
Yes.
And the employer makes as much.
And remits.
So I thought when you're saying that it will have doubled, you're talking about it is savings, it will accumulate interest, so that by 7 years it has doubled because of the interest. What do you mean
the interests cannot be locked in because the interest rate is subject to very many other factors. Okay? So if there is an interest, it will come in the regulations.
Is that so?
Okay? However,
yeah,
this is the principle. I am employed. I contribute 3%. My employer, on the basis of me first contributing, matches this fund. At the end of the period, my employer doesn't get anything. So I get this extra benefit which I would not otherwise.
So let's clarify here. The doubling you're talking about is your savings are being matched by the employer.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
That is the doubling.
Honorable,
now, the biggest issue
quickly, because
is that
I need to transition to the guests.
Kenyans have spoken about their view on housing and providing housing, okay, for themselves and for everybody else. The big decision for me here is whether this should be mandatory or it should be voluntary. These two colleagues seated here will be with me in Parliament while we debate the finance bill. They have an option to either pass it or amend the provisions of the finance bill and make it voluntary. So let's stop escaping
what you
leadership, offering leadership when it is required. And this is my position.
Yeah.
We could change, we could amend the issue of the contribution to the housing fund and make it voluntary for those who feel it is attractive. That is the power we have been given as legislators.
Okay.
We can amend any proposal brought before the House by government or by opposition.
Okay. By members of parliament. Honorable Mbui, where do we go from here? Because we've had so much. Are we making any movement?
The reality is that, and even here, our viewers have seen the amount of myths, political lies, and doublespeak that Kenya Kwanza is known for. First, and I will just confirm this because I have read the bill from cover to cover. There is absolutely no mention of any interest that will be given back after the 7 years of involuntary contributions. In fact, what they will do, and they have written it in the bill, is that they will even tax that money. So they take your money for 7 years, instead of giving you interest, they will tax it. That is what the bill says. So let us be realistic about what is in the bill and what the proposal is. And let me talk about, I will not even add any words. Let me please just address the issues Kenya Kwanza have told us, because we've listened to them for so long, and it's getting very tiring. Of course, you remember, half the time they speak, they are constantly talking about the previous regime, where they forget to tell us that the president was part of. Then there is constant talk about how they wanted to uplift the lives of hustlers. My colleague has ably said that really they have not. And in fact, they kept saying, we are not dealing with positions. Now we've seen that the real issue was about positions, because even CASs are more than the ones that were there during the time of Uhuru. And not to forget that, the Hustler Fund was supposed to be for business purposes. We have seen that it has changed. Now, the president said that Kenyans are not highly taxed. I've seen that right there on the screen. And he says, oh no, let's compare ourselves to other jurisdictions. Let's compare ourselves with countries like South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia. The average salary in South Africa, if you Google, is 187,000 per month. The average salary in Morocco is 263,000 per month. The average salary in Tunisia is 175,000 per month. The average salary in Kenya is 20,000 shillings. I mean, how then can you compare? It's like comparing, my friend here, the senator, said day and night. You cannot tell us that, oh no, our tax regime has to be in a certain way. And then Kenyans are already poorly paid. So many Kenyans are living below the poverty line. Let's compare economies that are the same. Let's not compare ourselves with people that are way above us in terms of economic development. Now, the 3% on housing fund, the president says, this is going to help a lot of Kenyans that are unemployed. Sam, let me tell you, Kenya is a capitalist country. We are not a communist country. We are not going to put our cake in the middle and everybody takes a share that is the same. Everybody has to put their best foot forward. We cannot say that because I'm employed, take money from me so that you can give somebody else who probably sits and hangs around. And the president said, those who hang around street corners, those who are taking drugs, those who are drinking alcohol. So you take money from me so that you can give them that money. That doesn't make sense. But then over and above that, let's agree that, yes, we have unemployed people who want to employ them. Is every Kenyan in the construction industry? Because you said that we'll take money from doctors, from teachers, but who are we giving that money to? Plumbers, masons, electricians. What about the doctors? What about the doctors? What about the teachers? What about the nurses? What about the cooks? What about all those other industries? The reality is this: we cannot tax everyone to just build one sector of the economy. If it was going to be broad-based, that would make sense. But to tell us that you take money from all of us so that you can build one particular sector, I think that's also being in my opinion, very shallow-minded, because we need to expand this. But then, I also heard, and this is also a lie, there is, VAT on fuel, even though we are increasing it by 8%, we are also removing, and the words were removing the 2.5%, although he said 3.5% road development levy. We are removing the import declaration levy. That's not true. They are only being reduced by a very small margin, about 1%. And yet, he tried to argue that the 3.5% is going and the 2.2% is going, so that you look at it and think, well, that's about 5%, close to 8%. That's not true. It's only about 2%. So you increase 8%, take away 2%, and then you tell us life is going to be better. I think that's not true. Now, Sam, the issue of, and I'm very happy about the reporters that were in that interview, because they asked about the price of gas. And they said, look, will you tell us about the gas, because this thing of LPG, being zero rated on VAT. And the answer was that, yes, it will bring the prices down, but we had already been told that by 1st of June, the prices of, a gas cylinder will go down to about between 300 and 500. When that question was posed, of course, the answer changed, and we were told, no, it's not the gas cylinder with the contents, it's only the gas cylinder itself. I'm scared, Sam, because even the prices of unga were told to go down to about 100 shillings. Maybe now we'll be told by Kenya Kwanza that it's not the price of the unga in the packet, it's only the price of the packet that will go down to about 100 shillings. Sam. but Sam, finally, allow me to just say this. Finally, allow me to just say this, Sam. The president was very keen, and he said, he wants to build the opposition. He wants to have an office of the leader of opposition, even in parliament, give public funds. But let me ask, because this is a double speak, and I'm very concerned about this. How do you say you want to build the opposition and the office of the leader of opposition, yet on a daily basis, you are raiding the opposition and taking members of the opposition to become part of government? So that means, in the long run, you want an officer, a person as a leader of opposition, without members. Okay,
Honorable Mbowe, I'll come back to you with a specific question. I've heard you. Senator Maina, first of all, does the finance bill get to the Senate? No?
Well, the finance bill first will be dealt with at the National Assembly.
Does it cross to the Senate?
No.
No, the finance bill will be under the National Assembly. But I want to say this first of all. When Kenya Kwanza got the mandate, together with the President Ruto and his deputy, to run this nation, it was based on certain undertakings that the cost of living would be brought down. And that commitment has not changed. What we have, Sam, today is an opposition that drives a narrative so hard, and will push a small issue, revert it to what they want Kenyans to hear, and then continue deceiving Kenyans until the day the truth comes out. And I want to say this. First of all, the finance bill is a proposal that is subject to discussion both by all the stakeholders, including the citizens of this country. And it's good they're giving the feedback on the many issues that they feel need to be tackled. But I want to highlight one issue. For instance, the misleading that is being done by the opposition on the affordable housing. Because when you have a glass of water, half a glass of water, you can choose to see the half empty or the half full. Sam, you are a witness in Kenya and in many countries in Africa. Africans troop to the jurisdictions that are in the West, talking about how the governments have covered and cushioned their citizens, providing housing, providing, support when there are difficult situations like what we saw in COVID situations. Different nations reacted differently based on how much reserve they have in their social kitty. Sam, our constitution provides Article 43, which talks about progressive realization of economic and social rights. Now, what the president has done with this affordable housing, and this is what I'm calling half a glass of water vis-a-vis half a glass of, it's half empty, it's half full. They choose to see the 3% levy that you be put in towards supporting affordable housing. What is the purpose of that affordable housing? We should aim at reaching a situation, Sam, where a Kenyan who doesn't even have a job can be told by the government, we can cushion you for 6 months with a house as you sort out your issues. So what we have is what I would call affordable housing. But they are looking at the levy itself, so that they are looking at the half empty. For instance, how much am I giving towards? Of course, the day you want to build a house for yourself or to buy a house for yourself, you take your salary, Sam, go to the bank and tell the bank, I have 2%. Can you add me 98%? I take a mortgage and I will repay that mortgage. The beauty about the housing levy is this. Taxation, once you pay tax, it's utilized by the government into the national budget. But the housing levy remains the benefit of the employee. How does it remain the benefit of the employee? If after 7 years you don't have a house and you want your levy back, did you know you can actually transfer that contribution? It moves into pension. It moves into a pension scheme, or a scheme that then gives you an opportunity to have back the money that you contributed. But the narrative we are being told right now, Kenyans are being taxed more by 3%. No, it's a levy. Note this, it's a levy. It's a contribution. It's like a savings scheme. Let me explain, so that we have it clear, because when the truth comes, it sets you free. Mm-hmm. It is a levy which, if you end up contributing 100,000, that contribution can even be transferred to your beneficiaries later. Meaning what? After giving the 3%, and the employer has given another percentage, you're not losing your money as an employee.
So do you stop contributing
that already, Sam.
Senator, just hold on. Do you stop contributing after the 7th year?
What is happening is this: when you are told you contribute up to 7 years for realization, Sam, of your benefit, it means from that point you can start realizing the benefits. It's like how you pay an
Senator,
insurance.
I'm asking a specific question. You've told me that after 7 years you can transfer it to your dependents or whoever you want to send to, or someone who is qualifying for the affordable housing.
Yes.
So does it mean
now, Sam, this is
just hold on. Does it mean that in the 8th year you stop contributing?
You may not stop contributing because, for instance, it's an issue of if the benefit is coming back to you, the question will be how much have you contributed? How much are you being assisted? Because it's affordable housing by the government, Sam. How much have you contributed? How much has the employer contributed? How much has the government put in? So what I would say is that an accounting process of that housing unit is a technical issue that may need to have an actuary to give us the submissions.
Let me ask you this.
What we are saying is this. Senator. In the 7 years, you start seeing the benefits of what you have sold into. And it's like a savings scheme. You are not losing money as an employee.
That's fine. But tell me this. So, paragraph 4 of, I think it's section 76 of the Act says that to receive their contributions in cash, provided that contributions paid out in cash shall be included in the contributor's taxable income for the year and be subjected to tax at the prevailing rates, rather. So when you read that and knowing that this contribution will be coming from your payslip before tax. No. Actually, your salary will be taxed, so the pay will be deducted. Then they'll go ahead and deduct the housing levy, meaning this housing levy has already been subjected to tax. Why would you tax it again after 7 years?
Why has it been subjected to tax? First of all, it's a levy. It's a 3% levy.
That is what I'm saying.
It's a contribution.
Look, when you're paying your NHIF, you take your salary, the much it is, you deduct NSSF, then you're left with a taxable income. Out of that, you tax the pay. Then you deduct NHIF, and soon you deduct, if approved, you deduct housing levy. Meaning the housing levy has already been taxed, isn't it?
Yes.
So why would you tax that contribution after 7 years again?
I think it's an issue of discussion and debate, and an issue of agreeing. If it has already been taxed once, you may not have double jeopardy by taxing it twice. The reasonable thing to say. And that is why we are saying, and that's why we are saying, and that's why we are saying it's important for Kenyans to say, let's progressively discuss. Do we at some point as a Kenyan need to move from where I live, maybe in a very low income area, in a situation which is not too comfortable, to a place which is a little bit more comfortable, so that we are realizing housing. So that, Sam, the debate stops at people being cheated or tricked that, you know, you're being taxed. You're not being taxed. It's a savings scheme.
It is a deduction from your disposable income.
Yes, it's like NSSF. It is something you are saving. It's like a savings scheme. You're not losing your money. Now, once you understand that, I think that energy of now driving Kenyans to feel desperate that they are being overtaxed eases, and we'll be having a proper conversation now to say, has it been taxed once? If it has been taxed once, you ask the legislators, don't tax me twice for the same amount. It's if it has been taxed. It's a conversation that Kenyans can open themselves up to. Some have not done because you've given all the time.
I'll come back to you, Senator.
There is the UNGA.
We're not done with the show. Please,
Let me say this.
Please note it down, Senator.
There is the UNGA.
Senator, please note it down. I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Honorable Maungo, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to add something on the issue of the 3%. I've had Senator trying to explain it, but didn't come out so well. One thing is that it is true it is not a tax, but it is a levy.
It's a levy.
Now, this levy is what we are asking. Why force it on my throat? Or why force it on people's throat? Because people, in their own way, have organized themselves into how they can organize their housing issues. Because housing is a need. But now somebody wants to force it down somebody's throat without even having it public participation, saying that now we accept or we don't accept. The issue is, what they have not told us is one. They are trying to create a fund where they can borrow as a government to finance their things. That's the secret that they're not telling us.
What do you mean their things? What things?
I'll say this, you know, governments remain to be governments. They have used affordable housing as a decoy. Uhuru Kenyatta began this project, had an idea of housing. But I think some of the people advocating for it now are the very people who actually went out to denounce it and have it repealed. Now, what Kenya Kwanza is doing, they are trying to create a fund which will be easy for them to access. History has it in this country that NSSF has been abused by previous regimes to finance the operations which are mundane. I'm believing right now we don't have regulations in place that can guide us how this kitty is going to be managed. Now, when you deduct NSF from my income, it is tax exclusive, meaning you deduct NSF before you deduct the pension before you can actually tax it. Right. But now here is saying that now I'm supposed to give 3%. Honorable Mbuya said that, for example, the average income for a Kenyan who is employed is around 20,000. It was a bit high, but let us go with 20,000. If somebody is earning 20,000, meaning that after every month he or she will be contributing 1,200 shillings to that kitty. In a year, this person will have contributed 14,400 to that kitty, giving it by around 1 million Kenyans who are working, either in public or whatever. You can see the amount of money that is being mobilized. Yeah. The question is, we are creating a fund for Kenya Kwanza to put their hands into. We need to find out, is it really housing, or they are trying to create a fund that they can now use it to finance some of the promises they gave and are beyond their approach? I'm sure.
Why are you so suspicious?
I am suspicious because you are dealing with suspicious people.
You know, Sam.
Because we use the past to project in the future. We are a bit suspicious of this kitty because, one, why is it being forced through somebody's throat? That brings the element of suspicion. Number two, we have not had enough regulations put in place to safeguard our money. Because that is not somebody's money, it is our money. No regulations have been put in place to safeguard this kitty. Okay. Now, how will it be accessed?
The legislator has powers to put in place.
Allow me finish. Allow me finish this. Yeah. So I would wish that before we rush this issue.
Just hold on. You're calling for regulations.
Yes.
Don't they follow?
He has powers to do
legislation. It is we to Nini. When you put the cart before the horse?
That's what I'm asking.
Let us have the regulations first in place.
Let me explain.
Then after we've gone through it all, we can now say that now we are now mature enough to create a fund.
I'm asking this because
you can't build a house.
Ordinarily, I see a bill is passed becomes an act.
Correct.
Then the responsible office, in this case maybe a ministry, comes up with regulations.
Correct.
And even the following day.
To the House.
Even the following day, Sam. So that if we feel that, for instance, you need a regulation now to cushion that fund, and I hear what he's saying about NSSF, and I would feel the same. then what I would do as a legislator, I would wait for the finance bill to pass. I would actually support the affordable housing for progressive realization of economic and social rights. And then the following day, I would come with a proposal as a legislator, private members' motion, if they don't do it as minority side. And then I would make sure I have cushioned that fund to ensure the government does not touch it for any other thing except for provision of housing for Kenyan people.
Will my colleague vote? Will he be present in Parliament when the finance bill is being voted on? Will you be in Parliament?
I'll be present,
then
but I'll vote no.
Will you be forced? Wait, Sam. Who will force him to vote one way or the other? Because he's saying people are being forced. This is a proposal on the table. The final determinant is you sitting in Parliament and voting. Where is the force in that process?
Okay.
I'll be in Parliament.
Number two.
I'll be in Parliament on that given day.
Allow him to finish.
Okay. So the question of force. Here is a proposal we are all debating. After the debate is open to every Kenyan, the 52 million of us. Eventually, 345 members of Parliament will make the final determination. Where is the force?
Okay.
The double speak that my friend, my colleague referred to. He is unhappy about those people who are in employment being taxed. Whatever tax he's calling it. He's also opposing, and he's given us the comparative about the 20,000 in Kenya and the 187 in South Africa and the 200 in Morocco. In this tax bill, there is a proposal to increase taxation by 5% for the people earning above 500,000. So who is double speaking here?
You agree with it?
If we are arguing that the more you earn, then you can pay more taxes, then the people, the less than 3% of us who are earning higher premiums in salary, then should.
Hold on, Honorable Mathenge, don't those people who earn higher already pay more taxes than the others?
The increase is at 5%.
What I'm saying is...
And this is it. There's also the question of equity. If I am earning 20,000 and I am earning 500,000, is there equity in us paying the same tax bracket?
Honorable Mathenge,
yes.
The reality of the matter is, if your salary is 20,000, you pay zero tax on your salary. Because it begins to apply at 24,000, which is 10%. If your salary is 700,000, like that of a legislator,
yes.
then the tax applies in a graduated scale.
Yes.
After the 32,000, you are charged 30%. Okay. And so what I'm saying is, 30% of 500,000 shillings is how much? Is it 150,000? It is way higher than 10% of 25,000, which would be 2,500. So does it really make sense? Just hold on. Does it really make sense to bring an argument that those people that are earning more than 500,000 shillings are being taxed lower than those people that are earning 20,000 shillings? So that now you make a case of increasing it by 5%.
It is not a question of being taxed lower. It is not a question of being taxed lower. It is a question of when you are at the top bracket, should you pay a little bit more than you are paying currently to bring the equity that you are talking about?
What is
that
equity
when you
here?
look at it in terms of the actual deductions, the guy at the top currently, even with the graduation, is paying an unfair tax compared to the guy at the 24%.
What is unfair here? I've just told you. 30% of 500,000 shillings is 150 shillings, 150,000 shillings. It is not the same as 10% of 25,000, which is 2,500.
And that is why, because it is not the same, the guy at the 24,000 is therefore bearing a higher burden.
How?
That is how we are spreading it to a little bit more.
How is it a higher burden?
At the top.
Are you punishing the high earners?
Why is tax a punishment according to you, Sam? Why is paying tax a punishment?
I am asking you this question because already the people that are in the high earning, like yourselves, you're already paying 30%. The highest rate is 30%,
yes,
which is totally different from 10% on the people that are 24,000 and below.
Yes.
You know.
You see, when we look at tax, and I want to loop in here the turnover tax. the responsibility to finance our...
No, you've moved away from my question. So, Honorable Mbui, tell me, what is the strategy of Azimio in this bill at the House?
Some we are opposed to, increasing taxes on struggling Kenyans, because we think that already Kenyans are struggling to even put food on the table. And when you tell us that you want us to save some money to receive it after 7 years, when we cannot afford to put food on the table, pay fees for our children, I think it's a wrong time. I am a proponent for taxation. But you also have to be alive to the fact that Kenyans are struggling, and this would be the wrong time. And
so what will you do?
And we will oppose it. And some, let me tell you, we will appeal to those in Kenya Kwanza that have the interest of the voters at heart to support us, so that we can...
Honorable Mbui, the reason why I'm asking you this question,
yes.
Previously we've seen you say as much, but you end up walking out.
No. Some this time we are not walking out. Some this time we are not walking out.
In fact,
on this particular bill, some we will be there because we will go through it from cover to cover so that we can explain to Kenyans and also to our fellow legislators on the Kenya Kwanza side. I want to say this, that it's important for members of parliament to understand that when they're in the House, they're not there to represent the executive. Let them represent the interests of those that voted for them. And Kenyans from all walks of life are complaining about already the cost of living. So for you to impose a taxation mechanism where you're increasing the amount of money that is being taken out of their disposable, income is really taking them, downwards in terms of poverty. So I think for us, we will appeal to the Kenya Kwanza Brigade so that, because they already, of course, have the numbers, that they help us to ensure that we make amendments. And my proposal is this. We may not just go and reject it, but we will make amendments so that in some of those, like the 16% VAT, we will take it back to 8%, the 3% on national housing development levy, that one will reject it together with Kenya Kwanza.
If we are defeated by the numbers.
If we are defeated, it's going to be unfortunate. And I can tell Kenya, let Kenyans watch this, let Kenyans watch us, because we will ensure that on every one of those issues, we will vote so that Kenyans can know who voted in their support and who voted against them.
Okay, all right. Senator Maina, I owe you...
you owe me a few minutes on what I was going to raise on the finance
bill.
bill.
Let's take a look at the feedback, then I get to you. All right? Is that okay?
Yes, that's good.
Okay. Citizen TV Kenya, Sam Gichuku, the hashtag to use is daybreak. What are Kenyans saying about this particular matter as we come towards the end? Babu Michael, you're saying that why always KEMSA, in the tune of billions, Kenyans are still in the verge of losing their money in a process that, if intentionally fumbled, even after the change of administrative structure of KEMSA, wow, that's a lot of English, eh? Is the body a cash cow? The difficulty, this is Lekhma John wow. The difficulty with which the government explains the housing levy leaves a lot to be desired. They are more interested in the funding pool than its execution. Tough times ahead. Engineer Lazaro, the priority at this moment is how to put food on the table, not luxurious things like good houses. We are overtaxed. Okay. Robert Nyachoti, everyone from Kenya Kwanza has his or her own explanation on housing levy, just like how they used to blabber about bottoms up. Oh, it was bottom up. Very unfortunate. Dombori, the problem with the bill is less about objectivity and more about subjectivity, making it unrealistic. Achieving economic equilibrium seems like an uphill battle. Hey, today there's a lot of English here. Rev Harry Kosgei, on KEMSA issue, President did a good thing by firing all, thus investigations should start as soon as possible. And on tax, let us live within our means. The President spoke well on the issue.
Yes, I want to talk about other issues that are in that finance bill that are a clear show of commitment by Kenya Kwanza and the President on implementing the plan. There is an intention to have the prices of unga lowered through the zero rating of the supply of maize, corn, flour, cassava, wheat, and unga generally. So you will find that is...
They're actually removing...
No, can you allow me to finish? Just allow me to finish. You can read the finance bill and you will have an opportunity, which I may not have at a first instance in Senate. And then there is the promotion of agriculture by lowered cost of fertilizers. You know, because what is being enhanced right now is production capacity, so that we have more supply on the food. And of course, if we have more maize in the country, if we have more maize from our farms, then we are assured that the cost of agriculture, production in agriculture becomes lower, and obviously that will lower the cost of food. And then, have you noted in that same finance bill, there is a proposal that the 10% that has been charged on income tax from monthly rental income has been reduced to 7.5%. That benefit will accrue to the tenants, by the way, because if, for instance, a landlord is reduced from paying 10,000 to 7,500, automatically that benefit will pass to the tenants, and that means it's going to pass to many, many Kenyans. And then also the cost of medical supplies and equipment.
Right.
Those are being exempted under the VAT Act. What does that mean? The cost of health is going to become more manageable for Kenyans. We know very well it's been a runaway. It's been a runaway cost on medical costs. If you go get yourself treated in one of these top hospitals in Kenya, it's very expensive, and that is already now being done to cushion the Kenyans. So there are many good things in the finance bill.
Right.
But what has happened is, because the opposition was so frustrated by not taking over power, they are continuing with that frustration. Anything they read, even if you have a glass of water here, they'll try to convince you that's not water, that is something else. They'll tell you it's
but also some of these have been concerns by also the unions, the workers.
Yes, and it's good to have that conversation.
It's a public conversation.
And it's important also to know the debt burden that the country is going through right now. Now, that debt burden was not accrued by Kenya Kwanza. It was found by Kenya Kwanza close to 10 trillion, and that also has to be paid some, so that we can become more realistic with our expectation. Previous regimes.
In which William Ruto was the deputy president, right?
Yes, he was, but he was excluded. You don't want to bring that debate, do you? We've had it here many, many times.
You know,
the handshake regime.
The public debt did not just rise. Just hold on. The public debt did not just rise between 2018 and 2022. It had been rising since 2013.
Yes.
Mwai Kibaki left it at 1.7 trillion.
Even Mwai Kibaki increased the public debt.
Yes.
All the more reason now.
And by the time the first term of President Kenyatta and William Ruto was ending, it was about 6 or thereabout trillion shillings.
Yes.
So it's a shared responsibility, really.
Even if it's shared, you know, during the handshake regime, that's when it was really spiraled to the wrong direction. The ceiling was opened even against set and express provisions of law. The ceiling was opened during the handshake regime.
Okay.
Can I confirm something?
We have no time, but to close.
Take me a minute.
What is it?
First, I want to agree with Veronica, Senator.
Yeah.
That yes, the issue of some taxes on import of raw materials to be used for the medical, the medical field, will have actually been reduced, which is good. But then it is subject.
Those who are not coming out.
In that bill, it says that in consultation with the CS.
Okay.
So that means that CS has to approve.
Okay.
That also opens up, unfortunately, an avenue for consultation and possible even corruption. But on the one of wheat flour and maize flour, they have removed it from zero rating. It's not supposed to be taxed. Now they've removed it from zero rating. That means it can now be taxed. That is the reality in the bill.
Okay.
Which bill
I was asking for time so that I clarify something, so that I'm not misquoted and you're also not misquoted. By December 2017, the public debt was at 4.5 trillion shillings. By May 2013, when President Kenyatta and William Ruto are taking over, it was at by April, rather, it was 1.8 trillion shillings. So they grew it by nearly 4 trillion shillings. That's about 3.8 trillion shillings. And of course, now it stands at 9.2. So those are the figures. And this has been done by the government of Kenya, different times, different presidents. Now, Willis Raburu is up next, and he will be here to talk about, the stories of African mothers, their sarcasm, authority, threats, ultimatums. Are we losing that to modern mums? I wish Senator Veronica would say something, but we are practically out of time about that.
You didn't even ask us about the Mother's Day. We had a beautiful Mother's Day at Langata Women's Prison.
Okay.
just bringing a smile.
Okay.
And looking at mothers who are suffering there with little babies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Senator, I will ask Willis Raburu to retain you for 2 minutes into the next conversation. Thank you all for making time for us. Honorable members, Juan Maungu from Luanda, Mathenge from Nyeri Town, Mboi from Kathiani, and Senator Maina here from the UDA party for making time for this conversation. And all the best in your legislative work. It's not easy, but you just have to do it. My name is Sam Gituku. See you some other time.